Τα τελευταία 20 χρόνια έχει δουλέψει με 400 CEO των μεγαλύτερων πολυεθνικών του πλανήτη. Έχει συμβουλεύσει αυτές τις 2 δεκαετίες leaders εταιριών όπως η Ford, η Motorola, η Johnson & Johnson, η Toyota, η Lego. Και πιστέψτε με, αν συνεχίσω με τον κατάλογο που έχω μπροστά μου, μπορώ να σας λέω, να σας παραθέτω τέτοιου βεληνικούς ονόματα για αρκετή ώρα ακόμη. Το τελευταίο του βιβλίο, γιατί πρέπει να σας πω πως έχει γράψει και πολλά best-seller, Ευαγγέλια για αρκετούς στην παγκόσμια επιχειρηματική κοινότητα, το τελευταίο του βιβλίο λοιπόν πραγματεύεται τις προκλήσεις που καλούνται να διαχειριστούν business leaders σε καιρούς αβεβαιότητας, σε καιρούς κρίσης. Και βέβαια σε έναν κόσμο ταχαίως μεταλλασσόμενο σαν αυτόν που ζούμε ούτως ή άλλως πια. Πιστεύει ο ίδιος πως οι leaders χτίζονται και πως μέσα από την εξέλιξη ενός εκάστου εξ αυτών μπορεί τελικά να αλλάξει, να μεταμορφωθεί συνολικά το παγκόσμιο επιχειρηματικό τοπίο. Και επειδή λοιπόν εδώ στην Ελλάδα ξέρουμε πολύ καλά όλοι πια, εδώ και χρόνια, πως ζούμε σε ένα περιβάλλον τουλάχιστον αβέβαιο και ρευστό, έχει νομίζω πρόσθετη αξία να καλωσορίσω τον κεντρικό ομιλητή στην τελετή απονομής των πρώτων Growth Awards, τον κύριο Rosen. Please, Mr. Rosen, join us.
Good evening, and thank you for switching languages. I deeply appreciate that. My Greek is not too good. It's a pleasure being back here. This is my 7th trip to Greece, and I'm always reminded of the proud history and culture that this country has, starting with bold philosophies and ideas that have translated into entrepreneurship and innovation over many years, and your love of people and the passion that you give to grace and friendly and hospitable relationships. We around the world always appreciate that in Greece. Today my talk is about personal leadership. And there are certain principles of leadership that are fundamentally timeless. They probably date back to the year of 1700 BC on one of your islands, Greece, in the city of Knossos, when we first founded languages. But these principles of leadership are so fundamental during times of crisis and adversity and challenge. You see, when all the dust lifts, healthy leaders build healthy companies, and healthy companies build healthy societies. So let's provide some context to what we're talking about. If we could all collectively go up on a plane at 50,000 feet, we would discover that the world is changing faster than the ability of leaders to reinvent themselves. Because regardless of the size of your company, or the sector that you work in, or the country or industry that you live and work, everybody is facing these 6 primary disruptors. These disruptors can be positive or they can be negative. They can be good or they can be bad. Take speed, for example. The pace of speed is speeding up, forcing us to see faster, think faster, feel faster, and act faster. Impermanence tells us that stability is an illusion and that we are all living in unpredictable and uncertain times, more for some than others. Complexity has increased in the last 10 years with technology and new ideas and knowledge and more choices in the marketplace. Everybody is grappling with transparency and living in a glass bubble. Issues related to governance and clear and open and transparent governance. Issues around big data and the Internet of Things and the need for relationships to be more intimate and more authentic in the new economy. Competition comes from everywhere. Competition for talent, for customers, and for money, as you know very well. And then also the issue of globalization. Globalization brings us in touch with the interconnectedness of all the countries in the world and their interdependence. Now, when we talk about these 6 disruptors, we often think about the impact they have on our countries or on our companies. But what I'd like to do tonight is to have you put a mirror up to yourselves and ask, what's the impact of these disruptors on yourselves? I like to use the metaphor of a tree in a windstorm. Imagine when you look at that tree, you see the trunk and you see the branches, and the tree is swaying back and forth. And it's very much like individuals in the face of massive change and uncertainty and adversity. And we're reminded of what we do, our accomplishments, how we look to other people. But what we often forget is that the hidden foundation, the roots of that tree, hold that tree in place in the face of massive winds and uncertainty and crisis. And as individuals, we are held in place by our personal roots, our values, our character, our consciousness, our health, and who we are as human beings. This is very important because many of us grew up in an environment where the paradigm of leadership was that what you do defines who you are. And that is still important. But what we have learned more today about leadership is that we have to change the paradigm of thinking about leadership, and that who you are as a grounded, healthy human being drives what you do. See, we are rooted in 6 fundamental roots that ground us, which are so critical during times of change, during times of instability, during times of crisis and great recessions. And I'd like to talk about these 6 roots and the impact that they have on you. The first is your physical health. Speed drives the need for physical health, being in touch with your body, having energy to do your jobs, and energy to replenish yourselves in the face of stress, and the ability to live a peak performance lifestyle. The recession beats down on the physical body, and it's very important for us to invest in our bodies. If we don't, we burn out and we break down. The second root is our emotional health, which is how we feel. This starts with self-awareness, understanding our strengths and our shortcomings and vulnerabilities. Many people in this room equate vulnerability with weakness. But during a time of adversity, you can't think that way, because uncertainty breeds vulnerability. We are all vulnerable every time we breathe. And that's something that the best business people understand. Another part of our emotional health is we understand that we live on a continuum of emotions, from our negative emotions, which are about anger and sadness and anxiety, and our positive emotions, which are hardwired inside of us, like hope and compassion and faith and generosity and love. Yes, love. And the best leaders live in their positive emotions, and then when they go down to their negative emotions, they course correct quickly. I'm reminded of the story of Nando Purato I met several years ago in London. And Nando was having lunch with me, and he was introduced as the guest speaker. So he kindly excused himself and went up to the front and to mesmerize the audience about his story. In the early 1970s, he and a bunch of rugby friends flew over the Andes. Their plane went down. His mother and sister was there. They died. And for 76 days, he sat at 13,000 feet in the freezing cold. He taught me about the power, because you're all familiar with this, it's the book of Alive. and the rugby players. And he taught me about the power of being emotionally healthy in the face of adversity. It's absolutely critical. And the third part is resilience. It's about being able to fall down and get up. It's about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. This is what emotional health is all about. The next slide is intellectual health. And complexity drives our need for intellectual health. Intellectual health is being deeply curious. It's having an adaptive mindset that can question your assumptions and change your business and mental models about yourself, particularly during difficult times when you need to step out of the box to see new solutions. It also involves thinking in polarities, in paradoxical thinking. We're taught to see business and life in either-or solutions, but the best leaders think in both ands, where 1 + 1 is 3. And we have a lot to learn. I remember I did an interview with Kumar Birla in the early 1990s. He was 29 at the time, and his father ran one of the largest companies who had just died. And he was thrust into the job of running that company at a time when India was full of bureaucracy and state-run regulations. And through a commitment to his own intellectual health and the collective intelligence of his company, he was able to grow that business from $2 billion at that day to $36 billion today. In the face of adversity, he was able to do that. Intellectual health is critical for dealing with complexity. Social health is how we relate to each other. See, we're all connected like never before. And relationships are like social electricity. And our emotions are contagious. And during adverse conditions, it's often that we live in resentments and anger and anxiety about the future. But in fact, we can be energizers or de-energizers of other people in the way we connect and relate to them. It involves authenticity. It involves building mutually rewarding win-win relationships. And it also involves creating high-performance teams and communities as a leader. The fourth one is vocational health. And this is really about how we perform. This is tapping into our inbred entrepreneurial spirit. It's about having a calling and a passion for what you do. It's about making a commitment to raising the bar on yourself every day. It's about going over and under and around obstacles as you see them, what entrepreneurs do so well. I'm reminded of Alan Mulally, who I've known for years, who left Boeing and took the job at Ford Motor Company when they were losing $13 billion that year. And with a one Ford mantra working together, he was able to transform that company to success. And when he left the company, they had made $8 billion that year. Not unlike Mary Barra at General Motors in the United States, who took a bankrupt company and brought it back to life through passionate entrepreneurship and won General Motors. Now, the problem with vocational health is we either get fearful of competition or we get too attached to success. We live too much in the past or we live too much in the future, rather than living in the moment and taking a crisis one day at a time. The last one is spiritual health, and this may surprise you, the fact that this is on the list. This is about how we see the world. It's about having a higher purpose. Do you have one? It's about being connected to something bigger than yourself. And it's about having a generosity of spirit and a sense of gratitude. We measure leaders, and all 6 of these predict leadership success. But the most powerful predictor of all is spiritual health. Bosses and subordinates and peers say that leaders who are generous in spirit with a sense of gratitude are the ones that people want to follow. This is an integrated, holistic system, much like our own bodies. where the respiratory system connects to the cardiovascular system, which connects to the skeletal system. And we don't do all of these well at all times, but we need to get them moderately right in order to lead out of crisis, through adversity, to vibrancy. The last slide that I'd like to talk about is to put this all in a business context. We talk about the trailing indicators of business, profitable growth, and creating value for the company and for society. And we talk about the best practices that you'll hear more about that are so fundamental to building healthy organizations. And these are the categories that the awards will come from. But what are the leading indicators are what goes on inside of us. Our healthy roots, being hardy, being resilient, being curious, being authentic, being competitive, and being generous. See, I believe that these roots are lying inside of you. They are part of your human nature. They are part of the history of Greece. And I have great confidence that you will come out of this recession and be better than ever in the future. Thank you all very much.